Military interventions in the West Africa sub-region on settling democratic space have signaled a strong alarm for Ecowas citizens to galvanize efforts urging the authority of heads of state in the sub-region to discuss and consider presidential term limits.
We are calling on the heads of states to shave away politics of tea party drinking and go straight into the matter by invoking the section of the treaty which says majority, two-thirds majority of those present at the meeting should endorse, and they form a quorum and the endorsement stands.
It will be recalled that in May 2021, Colonel Assimi Goïta staged a military coup in Mali. 4 months later, former French legionnaire and a member of the Guinean Special Forces, Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, led a military takeover in Guinea-Conakry, overthrowing President Alpha Condé, and in January 2022, the waves continue in Burkina Faso, removing Roch Marc Christian Kabore, a takeover orchestrated by Lieutenant Colonel Paul Henry Sandago Damiba, confirming the political instability in the sub-region. One of the main arguments acknowledging military takeovers is self-perpetuation of power, forcing civilians without choice to rally behind the military to set a transition government. The recent bold attempt to amend the Ecowas Protocol on Democracy and Good Governance and affirming that no elected leader should be allowed to go beyond a second term in office shows readiness to avoid not only authoritarian regimes but promoting democracy, good governance, and accountability. On 28 June 2022, prior to the extraordinary session held in Accra, Ghana, the West African civil society, private sector, professional, and socio-professional organizations under the auspices of ECOWAS community citizens wrote to the chairman of ECOWAS heads of state and government, Nana Akufo-Addo, to consider the proposal for the adoption of term limits.
Some countries like Nigeria had called for this particular subject matter to cease so that we can have 2-term limits. And this has been adopted by the experts. And the experts moved this particular process, the adoption, to the Council of Ministers. And the Council of Ministers adopted. And then the ECOWAS heads of state, the authority, would need to endorse this. But I don't think that, 3 countries, namely Senegal, Togo, and Cote d'Ivoire, would hold the region by the jugglers.
With recent political developments in Senegal, Macky Sall is facing a ferocious opposition force in Yewi and Walu, championed by Ousmane Sonko and former President Abdoulaye Wade. President Sall's desire to contest for a 3rd term in 2024 faced a major setback in the just concluded legislative elections.
Senegal, what is happening there is also very unfortunate, knowing fully well that Macky Sall is fully committed to run for a 3rd term, even though he wouldn't come out and outrightly said it. But the signs and symptoms are all there. Everyone knows that he is really willing to go for a 3rd term. But it's also good that the chairperson of the Peace and Security Committee of the ECOWAS, that is Mr. Siwon, has urged both Macky Sall and President Barrow not to run for a 3rd term because Macky Sall, although we know these are constitutional technicalities where they will say, well, my 1st term wouldn't be counted because laws cannot be applied retroactively or retrospectively.
Gambians hope for a new constitution in 2021, ushering in a 3rd republic, but could not pass the legislative chambers due to its failure to meet the required quota. Now, with ECOWAS call for a 2-term limit, how realistic is the Gambia's agreement to the proposed 2-term limits? Gambia's young political scientist, lecturer at the University of the Gambia, Sanjay, shares his view.
With the 1997 Constitution, where there is no term limit, I think it is just contradictory for us to sign the protocols to show our commitment when we're using a constitution that does not have a term limit. Like I said, unless we want to propose a bill, introduce a term limit in the 1997 Constitution, or we want to introduce a whole new constitution, which I think is possible if the government shows commitment, if the political will is there, ahead of the 2026 presidential election.
What should be the contribution of community citizens to the advocacy on term limits under new ECOWAS chairman Umaru Sissoho Embalo, which could perhaps put an end to military or minimize interventions on democratic space?
When rulers or leaders want to stay in power for eternity, then it becomes a problem, because this is where they develop those dictatorship or dictatorial tendencies, and this is bad for respect for human rights, it is bad for democracy, it is bad for stability. So therefore, it is important that citizens of ECOWAS, of course, led by civil society organizations, to champion this cause. ECOWAS parliamentarians, more especially, must champion this cause to make sure that we have term limits in our national constitution.
As current AU chairman, Macky Sall has a test to pass by either adhering to calls not to contest for a third term in 2024 or follow the footsteps of his predecessor, Abdoulaye Wade, as the sub-region continues to monitor the political space. Ousman Manneh, GRTS.